Welcome to ILTV's Israel Daily. I'm Amit Harari, and coming up in today's newscast. After murder of IDF soldier, IDF neutralizing armed Palestinian gunmen responsible for recent attacks, seized weapons in Nablus encounter. Meantime, New Hampshire takes stand against BDS movement, becoming 37th state to enact stronger relations. And finally, rising Israeli singer-songwriter breaking boundaries with multilingual musical brilliance. There were a number of successful counter-terrorist arrests over the weekend following the terrorist murder of IDF soldier Shilo Yosef Amir on Thursday. ILTV's Steve Leibovich reports.
2 armed Palestinians accused of carrying out a recent shooting attack were killed by Israeli forces in Nablus on Friday morning. According to the Shin Bet, terrorist gunmen Kairi Shaheen, 34, and Hamza Makbul, 32, were responsible for carrying out a shooting attack south of Nablus, near the Jewish settlement of Har Bracha. A police van was targeted, but no injuries were caused in that attack. The 2 were tracked down and killed during an exchange of fire with security forces. 2 handguns allegedly used by the gunmen were seized by Israeli forces. In a separate operation in Nablus, IDF troops detained 3 wanted Palestinians, and 3 terrorist suspects were detained in other areas of Judea and Samaria on Friday morning. The arrests came a day after Staff Sgt. Shilo Yosef Amir, aged 22, from the northern town of Meirav, was murdered by a Palestinian gunman near the settlement of Kedumim. In that incident, security forces had been alerted to the presence of a suspicious car driving around the settlement. A civilian security officer and IDF troops arrived at the scene and stopped the car for inspection. The terrorists in the car fired at them, and the forces quickly surrounded the gunman and killed him. The military wing of Hamas claimed responsibility for the attack, saying it was in response to the Israeli anti-terror operation in Jenin.
זאת מדיניות הממשלה, ואנחנו מיישמים אותה ב3 דרכים. ראשית, אנחנו באים חשבון עם המפגעים עצמם, בלי יוצא מן הכלל. שנית, אנחנו פוגעים במשלחי הטרור ובתשתיות הטרור. שלישית, אנחנו יוזמים ומפתיעים. אנחנו קובעים את העיתוי לפעולות שלנו, כפי שעשינו במבצע מגן וחץ נגד הג'יהאד האסלאמי בעזה, וכפי שעשינו במבצע בית וגן נגד המחבלים בג'נין. אנחנו משנים את המשוואה, וכך נמשיך לעשות.
Early Friday morning, IDF troops measured the home of Hamas gunman Ahmed Yassin Goiden in the village of Kibya, ahead of a potential demolition. The IDF said that clashes erupted in Kibya during the operation, with 1 soldier lightly injured from a stone that was hurled at him by Palestinian rioters. Troops responded with riot dispersal means.
Israel has come under harsh international criticism for its 2-day anti-terrorist operation in Jenin. The one-sided comments from top officials in the EU and UN included claims of excessive force and violations of international law, even though the IDF targeted only terrorist gunmen. More from ILTV's William Sharon.
The European Union envoy to the region, escorted by Palestinian Authority officials, toured Jenin after his brief visit to the area that successful Israeli anti-terror operation took place. The EU ambassador to the Palestinian Authority had this to say.
And here Israel has to stop its expansion of illegal settlements of Palestinian land, has to stop and hold accountable settlers who spread terror among the Palestinian population, and to control the excessive use of lethal force the IDF and the ISF uses when carrying out these kind of operations.
The ambassador's remark echoed those of the UN chief Antonio Guterres, who told reporters there was an excessive force used by Israeli forces.
I also remind Israel, as the occupying power, that it has a responsibility to ensure that the civilian population is protected against all acts of violence. I understand Israel's legitimate concerns with its security, but escalation is not the answer.
Can you clarify if your condemnation in your statement specifically applies to Israel?
Now, it applies to all use of excessive force, And obviously, in this situation, there was an excessive force used by Israeli forces.
Israeli ambassador to the UN Gilad Ardan blasted Guerrero's statement as shameful, far-fetched, and completely detached from reality. Erdan said that the recent Israeli counter-terror activity in Jenin focused solely on combating the murderous Palestinian terror, targeting innocent Israeli civilians. Blaming Israel for these ruthless Palestinian acts only incentivizes the terrorists to continue using populated areas for their arms and weapons. Erdan concluded, time after time, the UN Security General disregards brutal Palestinian terror and neglects to condemn the cold-blooded murder of innocent civilians.
At the recommendation of the defense establishment, the Israeli Security Cabinet is today considering economic relief measures for the Palestinian Authority. The meeting was scheduled after the defense establishment recommended that Israel take steps to strengthen the PA or face its potential financial collapse. According to the agenda, ministers will consider the creation of an industrial zone near Hebron and the development of a gas field off the coast of Gaza. Ministers will also consider spreading debt payments and expanding the operating hours of the Allenby Bridge border crossing to Jordan. The cabinet is expected to also consider the restoration of PA VIP permits, which were revoked by the cabinet in January following the PA's promotion of an anti-Israel resolution in the UN. There is fierce opposition within the cabinet to measures to support the PA, with some ministers claiming they are part of the security problem in Judea and Samaria and not part of the solution. And now, to understand whether the Palestinian Authority really is a part of the problem, with me to analyze is founder and director of the Palestinian Media Watch, Itamar Marcus. Itamar, the cabinet is considering a measure to prop up the Palestinian Authority economically. Why are we still doing this? I mean, is the PA part of the problem or maybe part of the solution?
When I heard this news, I actually was quite shocked about this. And I think a perfect example of why this is so shocking is the bulletin that Palestinian Media Watch is releasing today. The bulletin is a video that Fatah produced, and it has the pictures of 25 terrorists who were recently killed over the last number of months, and each one of them was also a member of the Palestinian Authority Security Services. So what you see is the picture of each terrorist together with the logo of the terror organization that he was a part of, and the logo of the of the security services.
It's really shocking. Now, the PA incites and encourages violence against Israel. Why are they still any kind of a partner rather than being really considered and treated like the enemy?
Well, from the Israeli government perspective, this terrorist that they know, they think is better than leaving a situation with terrorists that they don't know. But from our perspective and from the perspective of Palestinians who I work with, they say that this leadership is so awful, is so involved in terror, is so involved in corruption, is so involved in doing terrible things to the Palestinian population that they don't see any possibility of any future with this Palestinian Authority. They very much are against supporting the Palestinian Authority, and they'd like to see them literally disintegrate and have a different leadership come in place.
And what makes them stay then?
Look, the Palestinian Authority has been behind terror literally since its inception. Palestinian Media Watch was founded in 1996. We were already then warning about it. In the years 2000, the Palestinian Authority led the Intifada. And the years since then, right after Intifada, soon after, Mahmoud Abbas himself started raising the salaries and paying salaries for terrorists in jail. There is not one terrorist murderer who has not been glorified by the Palestinian Authority. There's not one terrorist who was killed by Israel who they don't define as a martyr. They pay them all salaries. This is a terror organization for by every way you would look at it. The government is fearful of a little void. I feel that you need to have a void to enable different leadership to come in place.
Now, the PA says it will send forces into Jenin to restore order. Is that really likely? I mean, who's winning the Palestinian power struggle between really Abbas and Fatah vs Hamas? I mean, all involved.
I can't tell you how many times in the last few days Fatah has pointed out that the majority of the terrorists who were killed in the fighting in Jenin were Fatah members. Mahmoud al-Alum, who is the number 2 in Fatah, the deputy to Mahmoud Abbas, he went up to Jenin yesterday, and we have the films on TV where he is busy praising the terrorists, honoring the terrorists, going to the families of the terrorists who were killed. And one of the people who he's talking with says, we only aim our guns at the Jews. And when he finished, Mahmoud al-Alul says to him, congratulations, that's the right response. So anyone who believes that Fatah is a partner isn't watching what's going on. You can talk to them away from the Palestinian world. You can talk to them in English. You can hear what they want to say to you. But unless you listen to what they're saying to their people, you won't realize how deeply involved and responsible for all the terror both Fatah and the Palestinian Authority security services are.
Itamar, as you're saying, a terror organization inside the country. Thank you so much for joining us today.